Welcome everybody to the 40 v19 R5 release webinar, where we deliver the good news and you deliver the great experience. Ad and I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us with this webinar. It's always fun. And as usual, we present the latest features and show you, the developer, what you can expect in the latest version of 4D. We hope to inspire you with ideas, and of course, we're here to answer your questions. That's what we're here to do. So let's get started. The R5 is now the fourth feature release of the v19 series, and it brings many exciting features. Now, every time I put together this presentation or a presentation like this, I'm thrilled to see what our 40 engineers and product team are brought to the table, release after release, especially since there are always features for both you, the developer, and your end users. And today's program will cover 5 topics: development, deployment, 40 Pro, 40 Write Pro, and 40 for mobile. Now, after each topic, we'll have a short break to answer any questions that you may have. Now, if any questions come up while I'm presenting on any of the topics that I'm presenting, feel free to put those in the Q&A section. That way, Ad and I can receive them, and we can either type the answer or we can answer it live. Yeah, and if anything comes up, please keep the questions on topic, right? Any TAO cases that you want to discuss or anything like that, we're not gonna respond to those, or we'll mark this off topic and we won't be covering those here. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Let's get started with 40 Pro news. So you probably noticed that we've been communicating a bit more about 40 Pro in the recent weeks. And one reason for this is that we're delivering some really cool new features these days. First off, as you may know, 40 Pro is based on a very powerful spreadsheet solution that enables you to build your documents in advanced ways. This solution is called Spread.js. Now, in order to make sure that we're using Spread.js to its full potential, we make sure to upgrade Spread.js whenever there's a new version available. And there is a new version available for the 40 v19 R5 release. 40 v19 R5 comes with Spread.js version 15.0.5, which is packed with improvements and new features designed to help accelerate your 40 Pro development. For instance, we have table sheets and the data manager. And this quick data-bound table view includes a relational data manager that makes sorting, filtering, and many other data management functions incredibly fast. We also have text to columns. You can now convert delimiter-separated text in a cell to span across multiple columns, splitting using the text delimiter, as you see here in this quick demo. Pick the delimiter, and now you have text to columns. We now have the removal of duplicates. The new remove duplicates option can be used to remove redundant data automatically and more quickly. Now you're able to change the tab position. The position of the sheet tab strip can now be changed with the simple context menu icon as well. Now, all of this is done to help you build beautiful documents even faster. Now, next, we have some enhancements on the print interface and this has been something that's been asked for by many of you in the blog or in the discussion forum. And to make it easier for your customers to set up printing, the ribbon now has a new addition. It supports print settings with a print layout tab and a page setup dialog. And with 40 v19 R5, there is now the page setup dialog. This dialog includes tabs for pages, margins, headers and footers, and the sheet information, allowing users to manage many options that are already available programmatically in the VP set print info command in 4D. Yes, so this is just a quick look at the new print page setup. So you have a page to define the orientation, scaling, paper size, print quality, margins, header, footer, and sheet options. So super cool for your end users so that you don't have to do that yourself. And the print menu now includes a preview and some options to modify the settings right there, like paper size options. And you see the preview on the right. So very user-friendly out of the box. And on Windows, when you click the print button, a new print settings window opens with a preview and the printer options. And all of this is done to make sure your worksheets look right everywhere. And then we have data contexts, one of my favorite 40View Pro features. 40View Pro offers you a new way to load your data and create templates, the data context. It allows you to create your document with placeholders and fill them by setting this data context. In other words, you can automatically populate business content with the right information for every situation, be it reports, invoices, contracts, or any other document type. Oh yeah, here we go. You see, we're setting the data context, setting the object to the data context, and then you're able to fill it in through the collection. And here's an interesting use for data context. You can now bind data from a form object to a 40View Pro area. Let's look at this in further detail with this quick demo. In the form on the left, you have input objects, and on the right, you have a 40View Pro area. Now, if you can now bind cells to form objects, and you're able to update them back in either direction, meaning that they're bound. So here we have Andrea to start with. Say you want to put Andreas. You're going to update the View Pro area. And you can also update the 40View Pro area, and you can now update the input objects. So that is an example of bound data. Now it's going to get super exciting. With 40Write Pro. 40Write Pro has received an extremely cool new feature to take your documents from looking good to great. Now, data context, they're everywhere now. And 40v19 R5 opens the world of ORDA and object-oriented development to 40Write Pro documents. Now, 40Write Pro documents often contain formulas returning data or calculation depending on dynamic values, whatever they may be. And thanks to context, associating that data with documents is as straightforward as using the this keyword. Now, whether you're dealing with letters, email campaigns, catalog operations, or invoice printing, access to data to be displayed or printed is made much more efficient with this. Let me show you how this looks. This data last name, data context, could display the values. And depending on the input values, your document changes with the data context. Very cool. And next we have table headers. This feature brings another useful table display option to your documents, available by either by programming or through the 40Write Pro interface widgets. And starting with v19 R5, you can define table headers in tables and automatically repeat them after columns or page breaks. Let's have a quick look at this. Here's a really long table across multiple pages and across multiple columns. We'll see how this works. You can set the number of tables, by number of rows as the table header. See, they're repeated across columns and across pages 1, 2. Yeah, you can define them. And you can also get the header size and decorate it as you see fit programmatically. So very powerful if you have large tables. And the last 40Write Pro feature that I'd like to highlight today are linked paragraphs. Now, some rules are already known and applied in 40Write Pro, such as the management of widows and orphans, unbreakable paragraphs, etc. And today, and starting with 40 v19 R5, it is now possible to determine if a paragraph and the one that follows it must remain linked, i.e., in other words, not separated by a page or a column break. So if you need two things to always be on the same page, for whatever reason in your 40Write Pro document, you can do that now with linking paragraphs. Here's a quick overview of a complicated multi-page, multi-columned 40Write Pro area. And you can also activate this in the style sheet. You can manage it in the style sheet. So it's cool. Let's get on to some developer news, so things that may some news that concern you, the developer. So now you can allow your components to publish classes. Now, say you've been following the most recent trainings with Thomas Mall, and you really want to sink your teeth into class development, but your application, for whatever reason, is not quite ready to be in project mode. Now you can write classes and use them in your binary mode application. How is this possible? This is now possible by writing the class code, the code for the classes, in a component and making the classes visible to a host database, either in binary or project mode, via a namespace, via the definition of a namespace when creating your component. Now, once you do this, you can now use your classes with all their glory in your binary database. Amazing, right? Now remember, by default, the namespace in 19R5 is empty, meaning that you cannot use by default your classes in your host database from a component. So, and if you're interested in this, there's some finer details in the blog and on developer.40.com that really explain this feature very well. And you can also, here you see you could define your component namespace in the class store. You define it to be whatever you want. And then you can also generate the syntax file for code completion, meaning that you can have that syntax file that your host database can see. That way you can still use the code completion that you know and love in 4D. Cool. With 40v19r5, developers don't have to handle complex parameter checks if they don't want to, like count parameters, value types, when calling a function and just passing parameters. A new command is provided, copy parameters, allowing to easily pass parameters used for a function or method to call another function or method. This results in a lighter, more elegant, and easier to read code base. You call task one does its thing. And if you call, it's gonna call alert. So that's what would make sense for that. And then task two, it's gonna take task two is gonna copy parameters 2 onward of the method. And that's gonna be a summation of those 3. So same function, different use of the parameters. And diagnostic logs have become more and more critical for troubleshooting. We've reorganized them entirely by improving their content and adding a way to filter the content level. Now the new log levels are errors, warnings, info, debug, and trace. Now, thanks to the new database parameter diagnostic log level, you will now be able to control the flow of logs in the diagnostic log and keep it small and keep it the size that you need. And by default, the log info is the default level of the logging status. .40v19r5 gives you better control over the order context and cache for both client server and REST, that should help you. That could help you improve performance of your application. Now, as you might know, 40 already provides an out-of-the-box optimization with contexts since v17r5, and with v19r5. We are going the extra mile by providing you a new command that enables you to have a better control over your code. For example, in this example, instead of getting all person's attributes all the time, you can clearly specify that you only want the first and last name, first name and last name. Now, this is a major way to increase performance by fine-tuning your requests. If you'd like to play around with this, I recommend you watch Marie-Sophie's 2022 Digital Summit, where she reviews these data contexts. There's a How Do I, which contains detailed examples of this. And I invite you also to download that and discover the optimizations. And you can find that from the blog. A link to that from the blog onto our GitHub page. I'm going to keep it going. And I'm going to go into deployment news. So these are new features to support the deployment of your applications, right? We're not just developing, we're also deploying. So disabling explorers on merged servers. So on the server side, the current user is always the designer, right? Therefore, access to the runtime explorer and the data explorer are always allowed from the server. If you prefer to change this behavior for whatever reason, 40v19r5 enables you to restrict administrators from accessing the data explorer and runtime explorer in your deployed merged applications. Now, I hope no one's going to say it, but if anybody says, what is the Data Explorer? Well, if you're not familiar with the Data Explorer, we highly recommend you check out this video, but I'm going to put a link in the chat. I will not show you here. Ooh, to everyone. Because as a 4D developer, you might be interested in visualizing your data immediately and easily while you update or create it. Or if you're a 4D admin and you need to quickly find a record that's causing an error due to inappropriate data, you can do that using the Data Explorer. The Data Explorer is a web interface that's built into 4D that allows you to do all of that. And this demo explains it really well. And it comes and it's shipped with 4D. So super cool. Oh, and here's a quick little demo. I won't show the full thing. Here's the Data Explorer. As you can see, it's a web page. There are your data classes, for example. They're the attributes of the data class. You can filter which one you want. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. It's just a really nice, succinct window into your data. And if you don't want that, if you don't want your admins to have access to that, you can now turn it off by default on the server. And reduce the size of client applications. So in 40v19 R5, 40v19 R5 brings many enhancements to the applications building. For starters, you can remove unnecessary libraries to your application, such as CEF or the web area, PHP if you're not using it, MeCab if you don't have your application, if you're not deploying your application in the Japanese language, or 4D Updater if you're not using 4D Updater, to reduce the size of your applications. We also changed the final directory when you build a compiled structure to accommodate those using the people using multiple compiled versions of the same structure. And for our Japanese customers or Japanese language applications, the Japanese version of 4D has now been merged with our version of 4D, meaning there's no longer a Japanese version of 4D specifically. So when you're building your application, take a look to see, and you can check off what you don't need. For example, if you don't use the Japanese language, you can save up to 80 megabytes of your application size in Mac. And if you're using none of it, you can save in Mac 586 megs. So super cool. I know it's a bit weird to type them, right? And you want to get the things going, but you're doing great. Next is on to 4D for mobile news. So several formatters have been made available for formatting your data in the list or detailed forms of your 4D for mobile application. For example, a Boolean field can be represented now in the application by either a red circle or a green circle. And if you think that's convenient, then you'll love the features of 40v19 R5. Now, here's a great use case to use all of the new formatters. Your people application example, from your people application example. Here you have an employee. John Doe, interior architect. John has an address, an email, a phone number, and a URL. And now with the formatters, you can now click on either one of those and open the appropriate application in the Android environment. You can also do this in the iOS environment as well. So let's have a look at how that works. So first we have the address formatter. Click on the address, and it opens up Google, and that's where the 4D France headquarters is. And next you have the phone formatter. So when you click on the phone number, pops open the phone application and has it already filled in. Awesome. And when you click on the URL, so there you are, us.40.com, it opens up the default browser on your phone to us.40.com. Probably your homepage. And you can display 40 text, 40 style text in your detailed view now as well using a formatter. And if you want to write them a quick email, click on the email and it opens up your system's email editor or email client. And you may be asking yourself, what are these formatters and where do I get them? Well, here's the formatters page. You can download these formatters from here and use them directly in your native app just by dragging and dropping into a specific location that's defined and that you can read in the documentation. And remember, if you have a formatter that you've been using, feel free to submit it to us. The more community involvement, the better our product will be. And that's right there. And as you can see, here are the features for 40 v19 that are in 40 now, 40 for mobile and 40 v19 R5. And this release was quite heavy on the 40 for Android topics, bringing those up to the feature set of 40 for iOS. And remember, if you have an idea on how to extend your application to a native mobile device, let us know and we can discuss how to do it as quickly and painlessly with you with 40 for mobile. Now I'm going to pass the mic to Ad, where he is going to discuss a few important changes in 4D for you, the developer. So thanks, Ad.
Okay, thanks, Will. Hi guys. So in every version of feature release of 4D, including major release as well, there's always something that has changed. We are always hoping for the better. And in version 19.5, there are several things that we have made changes and apply an update to it. So let's start with the first one. For those of you who are using shared object, in order for you to access a shared object, Will, you might want to hit that button.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
I was typing answers.
Yeah. So let's go one more time.
Oh, there we go.
So in order for you to make modification to a shared object, you will be using the command use. There were several requests to us asking for us to make some minor changes to the command in terms of the behavior. So now if you're calling the use statement on a non-shared object, you will not get an error anymore. This allows you to build some sort of generic routine that you can use in many cases. You asked us, we delivered. For the second one, second things that I want to cover is the command renaming. There are several commands in 4D, and over the course of different versions of 4D, we're trying to adjust the name to make sure that it makes sense to you guys, including putting them in the right theme. So let's go ahead and hit go to the next one. Well, one more.
Oh,
so the first two commands get data source list and get current data source. So these two commands belongs to the SQL theme. So we want to put the prefix in front of the command name to make sure that it's identifiable easily. And the next two command belongs to the web area. So as you can see, the name of the command is pretty self-explanatory, but we want to make it a little bit clearer. So instead of page text larger or page text smaller, we'll change it to W zoom in and W zoom out. Okay. Now let's go to the next area, which is this is the web area specific to Windows. Now, for those of you who are using the web area rendering for the system rendering on Windows, it is now based on Microsoft Edge Web View 2. And this change actually, offers some benefit, including some security benefit that you can take advantage from the web area, and that's including the course policy. Now, it is now gets applied automatically every time when you try to access the disk file outside of your folder. So this is similar to the feature that you may already see on the web somewhere where you're trying to access a non-HTTP request outside of your domain. It always flags some security issues, but now it's within the context of 4D and the disk access. It also create a little side effect that is if you're doing drag and drop from of an external file into a web area. Now, by default, with this update, the web area will block that operation from happening. If you're using Windows and you're using the built-in or the system rendering, you can still override these features, this behavior by using a few commands. So the very first thing that you want to do is you call the command wset preferences, and to enable the URL drop, which is the path to your file. The very next thing is there is a new event that we created for the web area. It's called on window opening denied. Now, within this event, it will get thrown every time when you drop an item into the web area. At that time, you could decide whether you want to accept or you want to reject. If you want to accept, you call the command wopen URL with another command wget last filtered URL to allow that new path to be used in the open URL command. Okay, so those are a few things that we thought would be that beneficial for you guys, for me to highlight. And we'll try to do this every time when we do a webinar as well. I know that in the past we have not done this section at all. So hopefully this will be a little bit more helpful and give you a quick reminder of what has been changed. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ad. I appreciate it. Any questions on what Ad just presented? I think it was pretty succinct and yeah, this is a great place for us to be able to discuss the changes in 4D and how this will affect you as a developer. And someone asked, someone asked for the link to the formatters page. I sent that in the chat. And also someone asked, who do they contact if you have an idea for an application that may work for 4D for mobile? And that is, please contact your account representative or professional services at 4D.com or me, wtaylor at 4D.com, and we'll get back to you right away. Good question. So, did you say that the course policy is now enforced in v19 R5?
Yes, it gets applied automatically.
Yes. Is that just on Windows or is that on Mac as well?
Well, for this particular update, it's strictly on the Windows for the system rendering. If you are using the embedded engine, that rule does not get applied.
Okay. Cool. And someone put a comment, but in the Q&A, but I don't think it's a question, so I'm just not going to answer. And just one more thing before we let you go, or a couple more things that I'd like to just highlight. I wanted to remind you all that since 19R4, we now have monthly hot fixes for the feature release. That means that once a month, right? So 19R5 was just released on Monday. That means 19R5, in 1 month, there will be a 19R5 hotfix 1. And the hotfix is designed to fix issues that are related to deployment or blocking issues for you to deploy a 19R5. That means that you don't have to wait 3 months for the next round of deployment related issues. So we're hoping that people were often reticent to adopt the feature release because they were afraid of this 3-month latency. But now we're at a 1-month cycle, and that feels a little bit more doable for people. So that's great. And then also we have a call for contributions from the blog post for the 40 awesome list. The 40 awesome list is a place for you to showcase your applications that you want to show off in 4D. So, and that'll give people a location as well to be able to pick and choose and to review code from the developer community. That way they can use that code in their applications if they like it. So if you have some code or you have an application that you want to show off, I invite you to check out this blog post that I just put in the link and possibly put your application in the awesome list. And everything we saw here today is referenced in the blog. Right? Every time that there's a new feature release, there's a lot of blog posts, and they're very interesting, and they help me and stay on top of all of the work that's going on in 4D to make it an even more awesome development environment. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Any final questions before we go? Feel free, and if not, feel free to write us a question or discuss in the blog, or discuss it in the discuss.4d.com to keep the conversation going. As you saw, the use command was actually changed fundamentally by not throwing the error anymore because of you guys trying out the command and saying the issues that you have with it in the forum. So we listen, and you usually get a quick response. So, all right. Well, thank you all very much. And I guess we'll close it. So take care, everyone. Bye-bye.